Good afternoon. Welcome to Behind the Olympia Curtain. I am Amy Lillard from Washington Filmworks, and I'm literally bursting with news because it just happened moments before we went live on our weekly update. I'm very pleased to report that SB 5760 was voted out of the Ways and Means Committee at the $20 million level. So incredible news. Just want to start by thanking I want to get the number right, 480 people who signed on in support of that bill in the Ways and Means Committee. So excellent job. Apparently it's working. The bill is now referred to the Rules Committee and is eligible for a floor vote. So incredible advocacy work. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. I'm like literally all of Twitter. So, gosh, I don't even know where to go. Like everything's going to maybe pale in comparison to that. But so that's what's happening in the Senate. And for those of you that aren't keeping track, we are now moving into week 7 of the legislative session. And that gives us 2 weeks left to get it all done. We're feeling good about our momentum and obviously great about the breaking news this evening. We're working with leadership on trying to move those bills. So keep tied to social and to your inboxes. What we anticipate happening is doing an all call when the bills go to the floor for a vote. We're going to need everyone to write either their representatives and senator to just advocate that they vote for the bill and keep it at that $20 million level. So, so exciting. Other than that, a couple other a couple of other advocacy things that happened this week that we wanted to give some shout outs for. We did some targeted outreach to some senators on the Ways and Means Committee in districts 15, 16, and 17. And we really wanted to, reach out to some of those elected officials who weren't in the production center specifically, who lived in more rural areas, and remind them that, yes, we see a lot of filmmaking in Seattle and Spokane, but we also see a ton of filmmaking all over the state. So apparently that targeted outreach helped because, again, voted out of the Ways and Means Committee. Speaking of rural, those are kind of all of our updates right now. But speaking of rural, it's a really nice transition into our special guest tonight and the work that he has done. I wanted to, before I bring him into the conversation, I wanted to share with you this beautiful and amazing and impactful public service announcement that Obsidian Creative Studios produced for Washington Filmworks and the Keep Film in WA campaign. But before I bring him into the conversation, I wanted the community to take a look as well. So let's take a look at that PSA.
This is the second oldest town in the state of Washington, founded by sea captains. This wharf is the last standing Mosquito Fleet wharf up here in the Washington state.
There's a ton of talent here. There's a ton of beauty here.
It's an amazing community. Everybody really cares.
It's interesting about rural locations. They have this timelessness, really. They can fit so many different things. Well, when you're talking dollars and cents with Midday Black, Midnight Blue, they spent $48,000 over the few days of the shoot. There's 340 hotel room nights at a time when we needed them.
All the production were amazing.
It was good for business. We cooked food, lunch and dinner for the cast and the crew and all their workers and stuff like that. That was a pretty cool experience.
Well, the communications between this production and the community was incredible.
It's really lovely to see when the charms of the island, obviously have their effect on the filmmakers, but also filmmakers who love the place and treat it well and make a good impact on the locals.
There was a saying in this last production, the island will provide. It's like anytime they needed something, we just asked, and our community opened up their hearts and their homes, and we found whatever they needed.
Music, film, television. We should be soliciting this industry rather than just feeling grateful that someone happened to discover the place.
I see the future being very bright for film in our rural community, and I think in rural communities throughout the state.
I just love it. I just love it. Such a great example of filmmaking in Washington State, and the impact that it has statewide. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Winfield Ezell from Obsidian Creative Studios. Hi.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm having a good day. I'm having a good day. Very excited about that vote there in the Senate tonight. So that's great. But I know you so well on so many levels, but it would be great. Can you just start by, introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your studio?
Yes. So first of all, I'm Winfield Ezell, and I started this company many moons ago. But I come as a filmmaker from Seattle. That's kind of where I hone my chops. And also, coming through rural Washington, because my first stop in coming from Florida and the East Coast was in a little place called Centralia, Washington. So I know rural Washington very well, man. I have very deep roots tied there, my family as well. So, but yeah, we do content. We're storytellers, filmmakers, and really it's about connecting communities, through storytelling, soon to be technology. We're planning on getting into the streaming space. And, the Northwest is kind of where we're jumping this thing off from, although we work a lot down south in the Alabama Black Belt, along the Delta, the Mississippi River, down through New Orleans and Mississippi and Tennessee, Memphis over there. So, we just believe in taking storytelling to every level, and that it's also an expression of community. So that's kind of where we stand.
Well, that's why you were the perfect person to do this PSA. Community and storytelling and all of those things, which is, from my vantage point, you absolutely nailed it. But, it's interesting, can you talk a little bit how you approached the project? We literally went to you and said, can you please help us make, a PSA about rural Washington? But how did you approach the project?
Well, in thinking about the project, I really thought about the word community really was the impetus of the whole thing, and trying to look at it from as many perspectives as we could to give a complete view of what impact really means when a production comes to a community, and in this particular case, a rural community. And so, there have been a couple of films here, some that are getting some traction now, like East of the Mountains. We've been hearing a lot about that, but also, there was this production on Whidbey Island and Camino Island that was a very positive experience for everybody. So we decided to use that as a case study. So the main thing was just talking to a cross section of the community so that we can get an idea of what the impact looked like from a holistic perspective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was surprised to see the wide variety of people too that ended up in the film. You had the chef, and you had, they were just all over, which is a good indication of what film does, right? Every sector of the economy is what we talk about a lot. So, now maybe with a little bit of perspective, right? Because it's been a couple days since you've wrapped it up.
Yeah.
What do you think will be most impactful about it, the PSA with elected officials? What do you think they're going to take away from it?
Well, what I'm hoping is, and what the intention is that they will see something that will resonate with them from their community. You know, whether they be someone who represents a rural community, or who has family, or knows a rural community, or vacations, or whatever it is, we want them to truly. I feel like the impact is going to come with them saying, "Hey, I recognize this. This person reminds me of this, or this business, or this restaurant." And so, really, this can happen in my community, and should happen in my community. I think one of the impactful statements from the piece itself, from the film, is when Mark Laska, who is the proprietor of Chow, the pizzeria that was there, when he was like, we should be reaching out and looking for these opportunities as well, and and not be just happy with somebody kind of coming in and discovering, because there is an impact, there is an intentionality that can become a part of actually creating scenarios that make it enticing, intriguing, to shoot in certain areas, and also make it conducive to a relationship like what was had with Midday Blue and Midnight Black. And I think
Those, I mean, the footage that you got, like, I know the drone footage stuff, came to you, but like all of the other stuff, like it was so magical, right? So, rural locations are, usually drive decision making, right? Because they're beautiful, and did you have trouble kind of cutting it down? I mean, like, how did you decide what went in and what went in and what went out?
something like this right here. No.
You're like,
No,
there's a lot of cutting room floor, you say?
Yes, there was so much. In fact, one of our fellow colleagues and friend, Anthony Tackett, actually did the first pass on the edit for us. And so we're cutting down, and there's just all of this good stuff, and we're going through it. And so when he saw the final edit, he was like, "Hey, that was a good touch, putting the deer in there. How did you get them to herd up and hold still?" And I was like, "Bro, we were riding through this neighborhood, and all of a sudden there are deer just everywhere, chilling and eating, and we go by and they just kind of look up and look at us." So those charming things, the seagulls behind Lauren when we were interviewing her, they right on cue would all fly up and come around together. So, I think the, even the title, "The Island Will Provide," I think that was kind of a theme for us as well. When we were there, it was real easy to kind of capture that piece of magic. Even going in cozies, we didn't get to show much of the inside of that. But I mean, as soon as you're in there, you realize this is a local place. This is a place where, as you're in there, you see the folks that come to the window, you hear how people are talking to each other. And those are the things that resonate with rural communities. My little rural community back in Alabama, it's the same way. We all kind of have a neighborly feel for each other. And when folks come to town, we want them to feel that as well.
Yeah, well, that definitely comes through in the film. I kind of want to pivot a little bit, because we have a long history together, as you know. And, one of the things that I love is that you have shown up at every film day that you're in town. You showed up when we were signing the bill at the governor's office way back in whatever year that was. So, but you have like an art to your advocacy, right? And I've seen it in action. I've seen you talk to elected officials. I'm just, you're motivated to participate in advocacy. Like, why do you think it's important to participate?
Well, if you are going to be put in a position, whether it be voluntary or involuntary, where you represent the community, where when you go out and about, what you do, what you say, how you carry yourself, the things that you're able to accomplish, truly make its way back to the community, right? For me, I always had that because it would make its way back to my family. I mean, I'm from the South, so you couldn't do much, good or bad, without it getting back home before you did. So I think that's in there a little bit. And even coming from the South, coming from doing work in Selma, Alabama, where here's a place that has a footprint around the world, but they run into some of the same problems, violence and poverty, that every community, that that is facing those challenges deals with on a regular basis. And one of the things I noticed in dealing with those rural communities down there was that the elected officials, they didn't get a chance to hide behind TV commercials and press conferences and statements and things like that, because when you're walking down the street, somebody's going to yell out your name and go, hey, you know. So when you have that level of accountability, they've known your family, they knew your grandmother. When you have that level of accountability, I think that kind of instills in you. And I grew up seeing that. So for me, you know, I always try to make sure, even way back, just dealing with the film community, that somebody that was a true independent filmmaker that truly came up, you know, driven by the need and want to tell stories and impact, you know, I feel like that, you know, there needs to be a true representative. I mean, one thing I can say is that, you know, if I'm in the room, y'all got one real voice for sure, because sometimes I don't know how to sugarcoat it. So, and I think that's important. And I try to be authentic, you know, in a way that, you know, no matter who I'm talking to, what audience or what capacity that I may be participating in, that, you know, I'm able to at least give that level of authenticity. And also when I go back to the community, can say, hey, you know, not only did I represent well, this is what I found out. And it looks like we're heading in the right direction. It looks like we might need to shift a few things here, or we may need to go stand outside, you know. So those are the things. And I've just found that every part of the solution works. You know, some folks, you know, need to be, you know, beating the drum of don't forget, don't forget. Other folks need to be, hey, this is what the future needs to be. And other folks need to be changing the day-to-day of what's going on. And so I think, you know, for me, I just try to get in where I fit in, you know, where I can be of substance, where I can help. And where the folks that come after me, you know, can get a little bit further, a little bit faster and make their way as well. So that's why it's important to me. That's why, you know, I always try to stay engaged and you know, great people, you know, you and Julie over there at FilmWorks have always kept me involved and connected. And I think that's a big piece. And that goes back, you know, and that goes across, you know, Kate Becker, when she was at the city, now at the county, always kept me involved. James Kevlis before her. So I, you know, and I say those names intentionally because that experience that I had all the way through, even when I was just a little filmmaker, you know, trying to get a permit to shoot in Seattle Center way late at night when that was my only goal that I needed. You know, I felt the same kind of, you know, the same kind of response and help that I would want somebody else to have. So, you know, I try to participate at a level where I can add the value that I bring to the table, which a lot of times is my experience on the ground as a filmmaker, coming up through some of the challenges, you know, as a Black filmmaker, you know, trying to make sure that my voice is heard and also not skewed in a way that we've seen in the past where only one piece of it gets through. So, you know, I try to represent the family well, you know.
Yeah. I want to go back and revisit about, you know, this comment that you've been doing it for so long, advocacy for so long. And I hear sometimes from emerging filmmakers that they're like, I don't have a story to tell. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm not like a professional filmmaker yet. You know, what do you say to them? Like, what do you say? Like, you know, because we're asking everyone to get engaged. Like, if someone feels that way about participating, what's your best advice?
My best advice is to, you know, truthfully not get in your own way. And by that, I mean, first of all, everybody has a story to tell, you know. Stories come from existence, right? So the fact that you come into the table, you have a story to tell. Now, truth of the matter is, you know, filmmaking does have skill and craft to it. And at the moment you find that storytelling is something that you can't get away from, then yes, you do owe it to yourself to hone your craft and to grow your skill set. But the truth of the matter is, everybody has a story to tell, and every story is valid. And that's what I would say. And if it means that much to you, tell it, even if it's just for one other person, you know. Mm-hmm. And storytelling has got us through a lot historically. It's got us through a lot culturally. And I believe it'll get us through a lot moving towards the future. And I think we need it.
Oh, I think especially right now, I mean, we talk a lot about how the future is creative, and we believe that. And it's important that we continue to support the creative industries, and they are the future. So,
Yes, indeed.
yeah, absolutely. So, I guess I'm gonna let you off the hook. I feel like, you've done so much for us, and I've asked you all my questions, but I'm just so grateful that you brought your storytelling to bring, Midday Black, Midnight Blue to life in that PSA, and it's headed out the door shortly here, so that we can change the hearts and minds of elected officials on those floor votes. So,
Yes,
on our
indeed.
team here. So, always a delight to see you, and thank you for coming and visiting with me today. And onwards from here, something feels real possible.
Yes, indeed, it does. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much. And it has been an honor and a pleasure as always. And I look forward to the next time.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much.
Bye.